So after we settled on a metaphor for everybody, the next week's assignment is to come up with a plot. You know, what is a plot? A plot doesn't really have to be that much. You know, if you have a nice metaphor, a nice problem, a plot will start to come out of it. So, Taxi Driver, the plot is really very simple. You have the problem, the metaphor, loneliness, the taxi driver. The girl he wants, he cannot have. The girl he can have, he doesn't want. He tries to kill the father figure of one. He fails. He kills the father figure of the other. And by ironic coincidence, becomes a hero. That's the plot. That's all there is, you know? And that just sort of came out of imagining what would this guy be doing. And of course, when you start to move your metaphor into a plot, you start to learn a lot more about your problem. Because I thought the problem there was loneliness. I learned as I was exploring the plot that the problem wasn't loneliness, the problem was self-imposed loneliness. This is a guy who's making himself lonely. He isn't lonely. He's doing things to become lonely. And that's where the whole issue of self-therapy really starts to come to play, because you think X is your problem. And you start examining it in terms of a metaphor and a storyline, and you realize that X.2 is really your problem, that you didn't really even understand your problem until you started using it as a story. So, in a way, plot just sort of starts. You know, it's a kind of just a what-if game. You know, we've got, what does he do? You know, or she, you know, wakes up and is she married? Is it a brother? Is it her sister? Do they get along? The husband? You know, you start to think up different things. There's a wonderful story about Mark Twain, the American novelist. He had 3 daughters, and they liked to hear stories, and he was a great storyteller. This was back before television. And on their mantle in their house, they had all these sort of objects. And every night, he had to tell the girls a story. And there were about 10 or 12 things on the wall. And it started with there was a cat, a little figurine of a cat. And then there's other things, and there was a picture of a woman. And every night he had to tell them a story, and it had to always begin with the cat, and it had to end with a woman, and he had to use as many objects as he could. And so he would tell them a story, and he would say, you know, the light went on, and he started talking about the light. Then he said, and then a boxer walked into the room, and he used this object, and then he went fishing, and there was this big shark, and he started telling more about that. And in a way that, you know, I could just do a plot here, working around all of this, and finally end up in the future in Star Wars, you know. In a way, that's the kind of fun you get into when you do a plot. You know, obviously, at some point, the plot suddenly starts to simplify itself, and you start getting rid of all of the excess and the extra. But at an early stage, it's just fun to explore. I think you're all picking up that I'm going pretty much against everything that you've probably been taught. You've always been taught that the secret of screenwriting is a one-liner. You know, get that one-liner, that plot. And I'm telling you, maybe plot's not nearly quite as important. That plot will come if you have a good problem, a good metaphor, a good character. Plot will come. But again, as I say, this is a certain kind of screenwriting. It's not necessarily what will help everyone in this room. The next phase is you begin your outline. And what is an outline? An outline is just a list of stuff that happens. Uh, you know, to use this example we're using here, scene 1, a man is setting up a light, the light falls, the light breaks. He cuts himself. He goes to the doctor to have this cut sewed up, and he runs into a boxer at the doctor's office. And the boxer has, I don't know, some mental problems because of a fight. So they start talking, the two of them. Okay, so you start outlining scene 1, this is the scene with the light. Scene 2, scene at the doctor's office. Scene 3, oh, maybe he and the boxer go out for coffee. Okay, that's scene 3. That's all an outline is. And so, as an idea evolves, your first outline may only be 5 or 6 items. You just say, oh, I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this. I have these 5 or 6 things. Once you get maybe, say, 10 things, then you're moving to the next, and these next 2 phases go back and forth, the outline and the oral tradition. I do not believe that screenwriting is about writing. I believe it is about talking. It's about storytelling. It is not literature. And I think the best way to develop a story is to talk about it. And so that when you're working on a story, it's really a lot more like, your uncle's talking about going on a hunting trip. The bird got sick, the dog got sick, and the bird got away, or whatever, Or me and my wife went to Las Vegas. That's what screenwriting is. It's just storytelling. And so you go through your outline, you start telling the story. And you tell it to anyone. Preferably, it doesn't really matter who you tell it to, because you're telling it really for yourself.